have paradigms and roadblocks that prevent us from excelling, and they can be real or imagined. Welcome to Beyond Bricks, a podcast that will give you the ability to break through those walls. Here's Dr. Nathan Unruh.
Hey, welcome everyone to today's discussion where I have the privilege of hosting Chad Greenway. Chad is a legendary linebacker who, if you've ever watched him, his tenacity and leadership on the field left a real lasting mark in the NFL. Born and raised in Mount Vernon, South Dakota. Love him because he's a South Dakota boy. Chad's journey from the Iowa Hawkeyes to the Minnesota Vikings is a story of true resilience, hard work, and if you ever watch Chad, just exceptional skill, his ability to see things before they happen, his ability to prepare. I spent a lot of Sundays yelling at the TV, yelling for Chad. So today we're going to explore the depths of leadership. We're going to explore the depths of some teamwork and the relentless spirit really required to operate at the highest level in professional sports. And take these lessons from Chad and say, what can we do through even what he learned through his highs and lows, and take that invaluable advice and put that into what we do every day as aspiring leaders. So Chad, welcome to the conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Good to be on. And that was a humbling introduction. So I think I'm glowing after that. I appreciate it.
You bet. Well, hey, let's get right into it. Talk about your early years and your motivation coming from Mount Vernon. What drew you to football?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, growing up in a small town, it was really about multi-sport. We were constantly doing one sport to the next. So started playing football in the fall, into basketball, into track, into baseball, just year round, and so just loved all sports. And really, quite honestly, I didn't really decide to play football in college until my senior year when I just got a better opportunity than the other sports. So, but football I loved because of the physicality. I loved the hitting. I loved to score touchdowns in high school, and what's a better feeling than that? And I think the biggest thing is you come to look back at what makes football special is that you're one of a bunch of guys that got to work together to have a common goal and a common bond. And no tighter group than the football teams I've been on in those locker rooms. It's a really special and unique experience.
So how did your upbringing influence your approach to the game?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I grew up on a family farm in Mount Vernon, so it was work when the sun is up to sun is down. My parents are both very hard workers, both farmers, both ran their family business. So it was screaming up the stairs to get me up to load pigs in the morning before school, to fix a fence and running cattle in the afternoon. And you come home from football practice or basketball practice, whatever it was, and you help with chores until they were done. And 9 p.m. whatever you got in the house. So I think that mentality really served me well, and my environment where I grew up. And I grew up with a mother and certainly a father, but a mother that was like, no, you're for sure playing football. I want to see you hit somebody. So the mentality certainly lives like that in small towns and across middle America. But I grew up with a mom that wanted to see me hit other kids growing up, not one that's trying to prevent me from doing it.
I love it. So I want to talk about resilience for a minute. Watching you through your career, I mean, you faced numerous challenges, both physically, mentally, and can you discuss a few of those challenges and how you managed to stay resilient through those?
Yeah, I think, you talk about the easiest thing to talk about is injury, right? So coming back from injury, had multiple ACLs, had 4 additional knee surgeries. So being resilient really is more of a mindset, right? It's the place. Are you going to wallow in your despair and your injury and whatever setback you're having? So the mindset really is about kind of the next day and just taking care of that day one day at a time. And I think that mindset was really kind of pushed into me at Iowa in college with the culture there in that program that Coach Ferentz has led for so many years, was just being so selfless and being team driven and really focusing on one day at a time and not seeing the big picture, just seeing what's right in front of you and attacking it. So, resiliency is just, like I said, a mindset, and you can be resilient in a bunch of different ways. Back from injury, what if you lose your position? Like, how are you gonna all of a sudden you're the starter, now somebody comes in than you, now you're second team, how are you gonna react to that? Resilience shows itself in a lot of different ways, and one of the negative of college athletics days, right? Just the easy way in, easy way out, which can be really great for some kids, but also teaches a hard lesson of if things get hard, instead of leaning in and getting better and becoming resilient, I'm going to just lean away and go find a new path. So that's one of the concerning things that I have with today's generation of college athletes or athletes in general. But also resilience is about how are you able to support teammates around you who are going through things. That's where leadership qualities come in regarding resilience, and why really team games like football and basketball are so important, because you do have a different level of connectivity through that locker room when you're playing with and training with and working with and bleeding together on the field. You kind of build this bond that's a little bit different. But being resilient is one of the most important qualities any person can have in any part of their life.
Mm-hmm. So you talk about mindset, which I think is a big deal for leaders, right? No matter what they do. So, I've watched you, I've heard you talk about it in the past, your preparation and your mental agility. You've made statements like, hey, when I'm stepping on the field, there's people bigger, stronger, faster. I mean, these are the best of the best. How do I gotta think different. I gotta know my strengths. So you were incredible about how to make decisions on the field. Your level of preparation was phenomenal. So how do you maintain that level of mental agility, if you will, in order to perform under the highest of pressure? I mean, you got to make decisions in 1-2 seconds.
Yeah, I think there's two sort of keywords I would think about, and one would be self-aware. You have to be self-aware of what your strengths and your weaknesses are, and most importantly, your weaknesses. And when somebody has too big of an ego to get in the way to hold themselves accountable to themselves, what they're good and bad at, that ego starts to sort of direct their outcome, because they become too prideful to fix the things they're not good at. So again, growing up on a farm and having a mother and father who held me accountable in a really good, positive way, and having a family around me in my NFL career who kept things in perspective, it helped you realize that the NFL career is fleeting. Your only way to stay in and get an advantage over these really talented people is to constantly continue to find weakness and work on it. And it's the things that a lot of guys that are ego driven professionals aren't willing to do, is to look inward and say, you know what, I'm actually not good at these things. I'm going to work at them. So the other key word I was using is just accountability, and it starts with yourself. And for us, it was easy. You go watch film, and how are you really watching that film? Are you watching from the perspective of, you know what, I'm perfect, that's so and so's fault, or you know what, they could have done that better, made my job easier? Or are you looking at it from the standpoint of, hey, that's on me, how can I improve? Or, hey, my teammate made a mistake, how can I communicate to him differently next time so I can help him make that right play? Because then in 2 games, I'll need him to help correct me. So I think just self-awareness and accountability are 2 things that I think about when it comes to that. And the mindset of constantly trying to improve. I think we get into a profession and we get to a certain level and we get told how great we are all the time. And you can't have people in your life that are called yes men, right? Constantly telling you what you want to hear. You need people in your life that are constantly telling you the things you need to work on. And then your ability to receive that news and work on it is really going to determine how great you can become.
So humility.
Yeah, a little humility. Yep, a little self-awareness. I've always said the statement, this is another thing I learned in Iowa, because I was humiliated. But to truly learn humility, you have to truly become humiliated in front of the people you care about the most. And I had an instance in college when I had a game against Ohio State my sophomore year when we won the game. We lost the game 19-10 at Ohio State. I was a sophomore, my first year starting, about 6 games into my career. And I gave an interview after the game, and I basically had said, we played really good defensive game that day, and the reporter led me down this path of, what more could you guys have done defensively? Really good defensive effort, held this team to only 19 points. The offense gave up bad field position and a touchdown, but defensively you guys played so good. And I just leaned into it. Yeah, defensively, hard to play better than we did. I thought we did all we could do to win the game. I just elaborated and jumped on his question. And the next day when we come in to watch film as a team, Coach Ferentz had that quote on the board in front of the entire team. And basically what I was saying was, it wasn't on the defense. We did all we could do. It's these other sectors of the team that has to be better. And to be undressed like that in front of your entire team that you love the most and respect the most of anybody is truly humiliating. And then what he did after that was show the next 10 to 15 plays of my game where I made mistakes, where I missed a tackle or missed an assignment or missed a communication. And being held accountable in a public setting like that is humiliating. And it teaches you how to learn humility and to be put in your place and understand that there's always more you can do. It's not always about what somebody else can do. So always find ways to improve yourself. So I think to find that humility within yourself, and then also, and it helped me in my NFL career to realize that I'm not going to be physically the best player. I got to find other ways to win.
So, okay, I'm just curious on that story. So a lot of people would cower, quit, suck on their thumb, right? How'd you handle it? I mean, what did you do?
I think the best part about life is when you make a mistake or have success is you get to respond. You get to choose how you respond next. And I think growing up, I was always a really defensive kid. Like, somebody would criticize me and I'd be defensive. I'd kind of lash back. But in that team setting, you can't be afforded that, because if you get defensive, or if you cower, or if you lean away from it, or if you point blame, then you lose all trust and respectability within that locker room, which is the thing I wanted the most. So my want for their respect, my want for the coaches to look at me as a leader, my want for those things were greater than my need to be defensive and to protect. So I leaned into this idea that you're right, I have to get better. And I think that comes just from my mentality that I grew up with, and being held accountable at a young age, and also being put in position on our farm as a young kid to have to be a leader and understand that sometimes you have to take responsibility for things that maybe weren't even yours, but you own them and you move forward and you lean into them rather than running away from them. Because if you run away from those things, you'll be a fraud and everybody will know it.
Yep. So, okay. So here, ladies and gentlemen, I don't want you to miss what he said here. Qualities of great leaders: accountability, resilience, self-awareness, humility. Also, you know what? It didn't just happen where all of a sudden he became great at Iowa or great at the Minnesota Vikings. Listen to the stories and connect it back to he was learning to lead on the family farm. And that just carried through the rest of his life. So talk to me a little bit about just a lot of people that, I have the belief, Chad, that everybody's a leader. You got to learn to lead yourself, number one, because you can't lead anywhere else till you lead yourself. But what advice would you give to aspiring leaders?
Yeah, I think there's this bridge you have to cross as a leader where you go from I'm going to do the right thing over and over again and do what I'm told, to the best of my ability. But that's why culture is so important within companies and organizations and teams, is because eventually that person that's just doing the right thing and doing what they're told needs to become a vocal leader. And I think leadership is really, because when you're showing up and doing what you're supposed to do, that's the minimum. That's what you're supposed to do. But to become a leader, now you have to find your voice. You have to make hard decisions, and you have to be willing, most importantly, to hold yourself to that standard every day, because people are constantly looking for the crack in the armor. So I always thought the best example of a way to describe this was, if I have a head coach in the NFL who's willing to own a mistake in front of the team and say, you know what, I didn't prepare you well enough. I didn't see that look on film, and I didn't have the right call. I made the wrong call. I mismanaged the clock, whatever it is. When you're a leader, you're the guy that everybody aspires to look at and say, this is our voice. When they're willing to own their stuff, their mistakes, their positives, it then trickles down into the team. So I think when you're able to find your voice as a leader, it gives you the confidence to say, these guys look at me and respect me, and I've earned that because I've done things the right way. I've done the hard things, and I've stepped up in the times when I've had to. But it also comes from the standpoint of when you do make a mistake, you own it because they're always watching. I can just remember, when you're a linebacker, you're naturally in front of people making a call, communicating to defensive linemen and defensive backs. So you're naturally put in a leadership position. But in the NFL, it's different. You don't just get rewarded that. Quarterbacks might, they come in, they're in such a position that maybe in that first, second year, they kind of get awarded like, hey, you're a leader, because you're the quarterback position you play. But in the NFL, you have to go prove that you can play. Like, nobody's going to listen to you if you're a guy who's never put the pads on and done it on Sundays when the lights come on. You could be a great practice player, but then don't show up on Sundays and play well in games. You're never going to get the respect as a leader. So it's twofold in that setting. Is you can do the right things, vocally call people out and correct people and hold yourself to a high standard. But until you go actually play, you're not going to gain the full respect of that locker room. So it's twofold in a setting like that. Whereas, yeah, you can say and walk the walk, or talk the talk, but you got to go walk it and do it and live it. And that's the same thing in a business setting. Now that I've moved more to the business world, is you can talk a big game, but people need to see you walk it as well, and hold yourself to that high standard.
Yeah, there's a lot of, the Monday morning quarterbacks, right? Spectators versus players.
Yep.
You got to get on the field. You got to be willing to take the hits. You got to be willing
Yep.
to do the work.
Yeah,
okay.
the best way I can describe that is have you ever been the man in the arena, right? Have you ever been
Yes.
Everybody's there to watch and observe and pick apart, and that builds a really strong back when you have somebody there who's willing to pick you apart for a missed tackle, a bad play, whatever happens, right? Everybody's always that Monday morning quarterback, but if you've never been that man in the arena to feel that pressure, I have a hard time respecting your opinion.
Love it. Great insights. So, transitioning out of sports can be challenging for many. I've watched you as you've transitioned out. I see your foundation. You're in the car driving right now because you're running a business. I mean, I got to give a shout out for Gray Duck, right?
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
So tell me how you've handled that, and tell me what you're up to right now. And with that, Chad, how do you want to be remembered by your fans and your fellow players and the people that you're doing now business with?
Yeah,
how do you want to be remembered?
Yeah, the transition out was challenging, quite honestly. I mean, it was more about just settling into that life of you're now. My life is not built around my career anymore. My life is built around my family and the schedule and running kids here and running kids there, and really trying to find your footing as a dad and a husband when you're there all the time. And it was once I got my feet settled after a few months, you realize how fortunate I was to be able to play football and financially do well enough where I can now control my time. Because now, since I retired in 2017, it's really I get to control all my time, which is what people can't ever get back. And since then, we started Great Duck Spirits, which has been, almost 7 years ago, which is incredible, with a great group of guys. And there's been so many ups and downs and so many successes and so many failures. And I feel like we've learned in the business world is, first of all, nothing changes. It's all about relationships and people at the core. So from growing up on a farm and how you treat your neighbors and how you treat your community, it's no different than when you're running a business in the spirits category. I mean, it's about how you treat people, how you build relationships, how you shake somebody's hand, the authenticity you come with, the integrity, what you say. That really is at the core. And our business has grown to be bigger than we even expected. But we didn't expect all the pitfalls and the hurdles and the jumps and the successes, the ups and downs. And that's really what you learn. And we're driving to Des Moines right now for a big event to try to create a new opportunity for our business. And it's just the things you do. And again, it starts with great people. I have great partners that are hard workers and get the vision and are willing to sacrifice. And I think so I've become a part of other businesses as well, where I really want to be involved in things in people that I like and things that I like. I'm part of the South Dakota Minnesota Score Feed app, high school sports app, and I've got a chance to be an investor in that and help run that business. And because I love high school sports, I have 2 kids playing high school athletics in Minnesota, and I want to be a part of that. So I really try to get involved with things that I love to do. And you mentioned the foundation and how I'd like to be remembered. I think at the end of the day, there's always going to be, the guys that come next, the Justin Jeffersons, the Anthony Barrs played linebacker after me. There's always gonna be somebody better, somebody younger, somebody fresh in people's minds. So the last thing I want to be was just a football player. And I think our family foundation has allowed us to impact the community on a greater level and be remembered for something other than just, hey, he played football for the Vikings for 11 years. And I want people to think about, but he also did this and did that and impacted thousands of kids and started a business and engaged in the community and gave back to the community. I think that's something you want to be remembered for. And most importantly, being a great dad and husband is what I would like to be, how I'd like to be looked at.
Well, you're doing it, brother. It's been fun to watch.
One day at a time.
It's been fun to watch. Guys, so many great nuggets here. Go back and listen to this and look at remind us to, you got to look yourself in the mirror, rub the fog off and say, hey, am I being accountable? How resilient am I? How self-aware am I? Am I showing humility? Am I willing to give back? What do I really want to be remembered for? And Chad, you've been a great inspiration for so many and myself. So thanks, man, for taking this time.
Yeah, thank you. There's one last shout out I got to give, and I think life and this things you just talked about, the accountability piece and the awareness piece is the spouse you choose matters the most. And my wife has always motivated and driven me, and we've driven each other in positive ways. She was a college athlete, a high achiever academically in college, and so she's somebody that I want to wake up and I want to make proud of the work I put in and the things I do and the work ethic I put in and the way I look at things. And I think that's the most important decision you can make, and kind of help build that relationship every day, because that's what I'm most motivated by. And so I think that decision is so important. But it's fun to talk about this stuff, and I really appreciate giving me the time today.
Yeah, so hold on a second. What you just said there, guys, don't miss that, because I can't agree more.
Yeah.
Who you pick as your spouse, big deal.
Yeah.
Now, you also happen to pick a spouse that's actually a better athlete than you are.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, better athlete, better looking. Yeah, I high achieved. Yeah, and I was a jersey chaser, not her. So you know how that goes.
I love it. I love it. All right, man, good luck with your event today. Thanks for the time.
You bet. Thanks, man.
We all have paradigms and roadblocks that prevent us from excelling, and they can be real or imagined. Welcome to Beyond Bricks, a podcast that will give you the ability to break through those walls. Here's Dr. Nathan Unruh.